Hey, Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our Tuesday evening Bhagavad Gita discussion. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinim Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामीनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Once again, welcome everyone. So we are discussing chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, and last time we talked about Arjuna's question on inability of mind control. So Arjuna said the overall process of Ashtanga Yoga seems to be very difficult. This whole process is very difficult to follow because it's very difficult to control the mind. So Arjuna said, it's easier for me to control the wind, but controlling the mind seems to be more challenging. And then Lord Krishna answers how to control the mind by abhyas and vairagya. So by continuous practice and by renunciation, one can control the mind. So we discussed in detail about this whole process of mind control, what is the nature of the mind, how mind try to trick us, and then various methods of controlling the mind. So after hearing about the mind control, and yes, it is possible to train the mind to control the mind. Now Arjuna asked another question to Krishna. And that question is, let's say somebody is still trying to control the mind, they are trying to practice this yoga system, but for some reason, if that yogi fails, and primarily reason for failing is if one is not able to control the mind completely. So in that case, what happens? Okay, so what happens if one faithfully takes to this yoga process, but later falls away without achieving perfection, okay, without gaining perfection in his spiritual endeavor? So that unsuccessful spiritualist, is it seemingly left in a no man's land? Okay, na ghar ke rahe na ghat ke, having failed to attain spiritual perfection, also simultaneously lost his opportunity for worldly pleasures also. So that's where Arjuna is asking the next question, and that question actually relate to all of us, right? When we start in the process of Krishna consciousness, we all may have this question. Okay, if I limit my material activities and I start to practice Krishna consciousness, what if I'm not able to gain success? What will happen? I will lose from material perspective also, I will lose from spiritual perspective also. So in 3 verses, Arjuna is asking this question, giving some kind of analogies also to Krishna. So in this whole Bhagavad Gita, if we see, Arjuna asked many questions, but this question is the biggest, longest question, because speaking in 3 verses, just explaining his question. So text 37 to 39, in 3 verses, Arjuna is asking this question. If one is not able to achieve ultimate goal of transcendence, then what will be the destination? So text 37, Arjuna uvacha ayati श्रद्धयोपेतो योगात् चलितमनसः अप्राप्य योग samsiddhim kam gatim Krishna gacchati. So Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist, unsuccessful yogi, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, shraddhayo." So he takes to the process with faith, but later he falls away. He desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. So, what is the destination of such yogi? And further, he says, would he be lost like a riven cloud? So, he's giving a metaphor, taking from the nature. In nature, sometimes we see a small portion of the cloud get separated from the big cloud and goes towards another cloud to become part of that. But if a gust of wind comes and takes that small cloud away, then that small cloud is lost by itself in the sky. He is separated from one cloud and did not connect with the other cloud also, but he is lost. The same way, sometime a person may be following the path of Karma Kanda earlier, but if he try to move towards transcendence, but due to some reason, if he is not able to get there, will he lose both materially and spiritually? Okay, so that is what happens. Sometimes somebody is just a religionist, right? He is just a religionist, but when try to take to spirituality, he want to become spiritualist. Earlier following maybe some religious practices, some religious principles, but main focus is economic development. Main focus is material enjoyment. But if he gives up this process of karma kanda and try to take to the pure bhakti, pure spiritual process, for some reason, if he is not able to attain success, he is not able to get there, what will be the destination? So this is what Krishna Arjuna is saying. This is my doubt, oh Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely, because without you, I find nobody else who can destroy this doubt. So this is what Arjuna demonstrate again and again. At least whenever the doubt is there in the mind, some question is there, he is approaching Krishna and asking about his questions, asking about his doubts, revealing his mind. And Krishna now answers Arjuna's this question. See, Krishna appeases all such fears by explaining that whoever takes up this genuine spiritual process, he is eternally benefited, even if they do not perfect it. In chapter 2 also, Krishna had mentioned this particular verse that in this path there is no loss. Even if somebody make little endeavor, little progress, that is not lost at any time. So now also Arjuna is just trying to get that reassurance. So what will happen if I try to practice this but not able to gain complete success? So Krishna again replies, there is no loss or diminution on this path. So text 40 onwards, now Lord Krishna is answering this question. Shri Bhagavan uvacha partha nevehe namutra vinashastasya vidyate nahi kalyan krita kaschit durgaitam tat gacchati. Duragatim tat gacchati. So Krishna is saying, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, son of Pritha, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with the destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So Krishna is giving reassurance here that somebody who is taking to this path of transcendence, to the path of spiritualism, for him there is no loss. So one should not have that sort of doubt in the mind. Those who follow the path of auspiciousness also can be divided into different sections. Let's say primarily three sections. One is who is trying to follow the Shastra by following the rules and regulations of the scriptures. Then second is those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence. Their goal is to merge into the Brahmajyoti. Third, those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness. So those who are following the scriptures, following the rules and regulation, that can be also further divided into two classes. One class is following the rules and regulation for material gain. Okay, fruitive workers. They have desires, they follow certain rules and regulation for material gain, some sense enjoyment. And there are second category in that, those who are following the rules and regulation purely for the purpose of purification. Now, somebody who is following the rules and regulation for material enjoyment, okay, they are also elevated to higher standard of life, even to the higher planets. But still, because they are not free from material existence, they are not free from material desires, they are not following the truly auspicious path. So the perfect auspicious path is which lead one to liberation, which lead one to the spiritual world. So any activity which is not aimed at ultimate self-realization or liberation from the material bodily concept of life is not fully auspicious. So only activities in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activities. And anyone who voluntarily accepts all the bodily discomforts for the sake of making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness can be called as perfect transcendentalist. So here Krishna is saying somebody who is on the path of auspiciousness, for him there is no loss. He is not lost at any point. And we should understand when somebody take to this process of Krishna consciousness, somebody is taking to this process of bhakti. Bhakti is not part of life. Life is part of bhakti. Okay, because bhakti may be spread over many lifetimes before we achieve the ultimate goal. Yes, goal is in this lifetime we want to attain the perfection. We want to attain the complete success. But still, it may not be possible. It may be spread over multiple lifetimes. Now, when we progress on the path of spirituality, on the path of Krishna consciousness, there may be two type of obstacle. Okay, first obstacle is physical problem. Physical problem means there are requirements to fulfill the need of the body. Okay, there are desires, there are some social life. Somebody may say, oh, what about my social life? What about my family life? What about my professional life? So there may be physical problems based on one's desire. And then second obstacle is based on mental intellectual problem. And that is in the category of doubts and misconceptions. Okay, so many times there may be some doubt in the mind. Doubt may come, okay, I am such a religious person. I am trying to follow spirituality, and why there is problem in my life? Why is God making me suffer? So many times some such doubts also come, and one is driven away from that process. They leave that process because mind is proposing all sort of doubts in the process, and sometimes there are some misconceptions. And when we hear against our misconception, we are not able to handle those misconceptions. We are not able to give up those misconceptions, and we think, oh, why such and such guru is speaking negative about this point. Okay, for example, in earlier days of ISKCON, There was one devotee who left the movement because he could not digest Prabhupada's philosophy on this moon mission. Okay, Prabhupada was mentioning that no, no, this is all hawks. They never went to moon. It's not possible for them to land on the moon. And this devotee was thinking, oh, science has made so much progress, and they're showing so much of this news that the astronauts went on the moon, they landed on the moon, and why Prabhupada is saying no, it's not possible. He could not digest this thing, Prabhupada's statement, and he left the movement. So sometimes these intellectual problems come, some doubts come, some misconception which we are holding on to, and one is not able to give up those, and that also may become process obstacle on the path of our progress. So two type of obstacle. One is based on our physical problem, physical desires, material desires. Second is mental and intellectual problems. Now, Krishna gives the answer to Arjuna's question. So, in text 40, Krishna briefly mentioned that somebody who is on this process, there is no loss. But now, Krishna, text 41 onwards, Krishna is giving a very conclusive answer. With telling what happens in what particular situation. So, text 41 is very, very important. Prapya punya kritam lokan उषित्वा शाश्वती समः शुचीनां श्रीमतां गेहे योगा भ्रष्टो विजायते. So yoga bhrashto, somebody who has fallen from this process of yoga, the unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of pious living entities, means in the higher planets, Swargaloka, Maharloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, Brahmaloka. So in the higher planets, after enjoying for many years, such person is born again on earth into the families of righteous people or into the family of rich aristocrat people. Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe. So Shuchinam means who are pure people, righteous people, and Shrimatam means who are wealthy, well-to-do, rich aristocrat people. So after enjoying such a unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment in the higher planets, they again take birth in such families. So two category of families, either as very pious, purified, pure families, righteous people, or very rich families. So here Krishna is explaining about that type of unsuccessful yogi who has fallen down after small practice. Okay. So Krishna will give answer for both categories. Somebody who took up to this process, they practiced for some time, but then they left the process. They fell away from this process. For such people, what happens? First of all, why people leave the process after short duration of practice? Because we take to this process of yoga, but still there is a tendency of bhoga. So yoga and bhoga. Somebody is trying to do yoga, but tendency is there to do bhoga, enjoy. If there is tendency for material enjoyment, if there are so much of desires are still there, and because of those unfulfilled desire or distraction caused by those desire, somebody give up this process, then what happened? They are sent to higher planets based on their punya, whatever they have accumulated, their pious credit, whatever they have accumulated. They go to the higher planets, Swarga or higher planets, because in the higher planets there are much more facilities for enjoyment. Because the reason for falling down is still having attachments, still having the desire to enjoy, and heavenly places offer often the facilities to enjoy. There are higher duration of life to enjoy, quality of enjoyment is much better, and the quantity of the resources in heavenly planets is much better. Okay, so Krishna says, okay, you have still that unfulfilled desires, still those attachments, those hankerings are there. Okay, you go to these higher planets and try to satisfy your desires, try to fulfill your desires. And once they have fulfilled their desires or tried to fulfill their desire, they have exhausted their accumulated pious credit, then they again come back to earth planet. Shine Punne Mrityu Lokam Vishanti. This principle Krishna is going to explain much more detail later on in chapter 7. So after they have tried to enjoy in the heavenly planets, they again come down to the earthly planet, because earth planet is our karma bhumi. Okay? Only on earth one can accumulate the karma account, and only in the human form of life one can accumulate karma. So only on earth and only in human form of life one can accumulate karma. All other species of life and all other planets, they are to exhaust that karma, to spend that karma. So other planetary system, either the higher planets or the lower planets, those are all the places to exhaust karma. In higher planets, one exhausts karma of the pious karma, and in the lower planets, hellish planets, one exhausts the sinful karma. So after somebody has exhausted their karma in the heavenly planets, the pious karma, they again come down, take birth now in either as a pious family, purified family, or in a rich aristocratic family. So when one takes birth in a rich family, one does not have to worry about the material necessities, the bodily needs. Okay, somebody is born in a very rich, wealthy, well-to-do family, and they don't have to worry about how I earn my livelihood, how I earn my dal roti, how I have a shed on my head. Okay, सर के ऊपर छत कैसे बनेगी. So they don't have to worry about all these things. And if one takes birth in a purified, pious, intellectual Brahmana family, then one gets the facility of being trained from a very early age to move further in the spiritual life. Okay, so here Srila Prabhupada actually writes in the purport that our Guru Maharaj Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, myself, we are in that category that we had the opportunity to take birth in such pious families where our parents were devoted and we were cultivated from the beginning. So there are so many examples like that. We can see so many children who take birth in the devotee families, and from their early life on, they make fast progress in their spiritual life. Why? Because the circumstances, the situation, the family of our birth had important bearing upon the course of our life. From our bodily parents, we drive some physical hereditary characteristics, no doubt about that. However, there is also the process of social heredity. Okay, we, based on in which family we are born, in which place, which situation we are born, we blindly follow certain customs because of the social environment of our upbringing. Okay, and we identify ourselves with the nationality based on our birth, and even to the extent of developing sometime enmity with people of other nationality. Somebody born in India may develop enmity towards people living in Pakistan, or people born in Pakistan may develop enmity towards people living in India. So based on our nationality, we develop particular class of affiliations. And also we follow the religion of our parents on the basis of social heredity. So based on our circumstances, situation, we take up to that path. And people who have strong inclination towards spirituality, they may take birth in the family of the followers of Sanatan Dharma, which provides strong foundation for spirituality. Now also in text 42, now Krishna speak about what happens to somebody who is unsuccessful after long practice. What happens to such unsuccessful yogi? So text 42, Krishna says, Athva yogi nameva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabhataram loke janma yadi darsham loke janma yad idarsham. So, or if unsuccessful yogi, he falls away from the practice after long practice. He takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. Okay, so I misquoted Prabhupada's example and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in the first category. Actually, it belongs to this category here, where Prabhupada is mentioning that we were fortunate to take birth in the family of transcendentalists. So here it says if somebody is unsuccessful after long practice of yoga. Now, one more clarification I want to give, even though Prabhupada out of his humility is mentioning that, oh, we took birth in the family of transcendentalists, quoting himself as that, okay, maybe we had some leftover in our completion of spiritual success. It's not that case. Prabhupada, he descended from the spiritual world. Many other places it's quoted that Prabhupada is the representative of Krishna who came down from the spiritual world. But Prabhupada, out of his humility, just to give us an example, he is mentioning in that way. So here, Krishna is saying, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. Now, somebody who has practiced long time, they have gained 70-80%, they have attained to that level of perfection in their spirituality, but then because of some leftover, some either some doubts or something, they have to come back to continue their spiritual journey. So Krishna does not send them to higher planets first to enjoy their pious spirits, because Krishna does not want to entangle that person or delay their perfection. They take birth in the family of transcendentalists where they can continue their spiritual journey. So one example also quoted here is Ramanujacharya. Again, it does not really apply on him because he was a direct avatar of Lakshman. But this is quoted again just to make a point. Okay. So same way Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati examples are mentioned here just to make a point, not really that this really applies on them. And if we also see in our circle, there are so many kids. If you make 10 kids sit in a line and have them do kirtan, do you think all the kids have same response, same reaction in the kirtan? All the children are participating with the same mood in the kirtan. We see some child may be very much engaged in kirtan. He is completely absorbed. Some other child is completely oblivious to this, right? He may be looking here and there, distracted. So why these children have different behavior for the same activity? It depends on what success they have gained in their previous life, to what level they have completed their spiritual success. And same way, somebody may start later than us, but may make progress much faster. Okay. So today I may be speaking, but tomorrow some of you may be giving the discourse, some of you may be speaking, and I may have the opportunity to learn from some of you. So it is not about the starting point. Somebody may come later on, join the race later on, but they may progress much faster. Again, depends on where they had left in their previous life. Okay, I know so many devotees within our local congregation here. Somebody joined in the process and they made so fast, rapid progress. Yeah, now they are preaching vigorously. They're making so many devotees and cultivating so many devotees. So it just depends when they came in the process, when they exhausted their previous hankerings or desires, and then now they are making much faster progress. And text 43 onwards, Krishna is just emphasizing on this point. On taking such a birth, one revives his divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. Okay, and by virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to these yogic principles. even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scripture. So, point Krishna is mentioning here, not necessarily somebody has to follow again the basic principles of scripture, all the rules and regulation. They may start and make a rapid progress. And when such yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, they ultimately achieve perfection after many, many births of practice and then attains to the supreme goal. So ultimately, what is happening here? Krishna is sitting in our heart. Okay? Krishna is sitting in the heart of every living entity. And Krishna has a perfect accounting system. Okay? His software is perfect. All the data is stored very nicely. Whatever spiritual assets we have accumulated in our past lives, be it detachment, wisdom, devotion, faith, tolerance, determination. So, all these, whatever spiritual assets we have accumulated, to whatever degree we have accumulated those, Krishna knows all of them. And at the appropriate time, he gives us the fruit of our past efforts and then enhances our spirituality from within in accordance with our previous attainments. Okay, so again, we may see somebody is very determined. As soon as they come in the process, they take to, let's say somebody has taken the vow, okay, tomorrow onwards 16 round chanting. They take to the process with full determination. In no wavering here and there now. ऐसा नहीं है कि 16 से 8 and then 8 से 4 again 4 to 8 struggling. Once they have taken the determination, they move forward with determination. Why? Because they gained that spiritual asset maybe previously. So Krishna has perfect accounting system. He knows all our traits very well, and he enhances our spirituality from within based on our previous attainment. So, and this perfectly explains why some people, they may be very materialistic earlier, but suddenly they become deeply spiritual. So when their spiritual samskaras awaken, they get the benefit of their sadhana of previous lives. And somebody may have taken birth in a Western family also due to some previous unfulfilled desire. But as they come in contact with the devotee, as they come in contact with the spiritual process, they make very quick, rapid progress. And very simple example to understand this principle is, you see, if you are traveling, during the travel, you may stop, you may lay over at one place, you may break your journey to rest for the night in a hotel, right? On the side of a freeway, you booked a hotel on the way. Let's say you have a 10-hour journey. You traveled for 5, 6 hours, and at night you just took a break and stayed at some motel. And when you get up in the morning next day, you get freshen up, and then you continue your journey. So you don't have to again tread the distance which you have already covered. You are starting from that point up to which you have already traveled. So simply moving ahead from where you had left. Likewise, with Krishna's mercy, the yogi, from his past life, he receives the previous spiritual asset accumulated and then continues his journey from where he had left. Okay, just like somebody waking up from sleep and continuing their travel. And that's why such a yogi is never lost. So Krishna is very perfectly explaining here what is the destination of an unsuccessful yogi. Again, to recap, two categories of unsuccessful yogi. One is somebody who had left the process after short duration of practice. Okay, such unsuccessful yogi, why they left the process? Because of some material hankering, some desires, So that's why Krishna sends them to higher planets. Okay, you enjoy the result of your pious karma, and then they come back after exhausting their pious karma, and they are given birth in a either pious family or a very well-to-do rich aristocratic family where they don't have to worry about their material needs, and then they continue their spiritual journey. Second class of unsuccessful yogi is somebody failed or drifted away after long practice. If we see in our movement also somebody practiced for 30-40 years, then they left the process because of some disagreement with somebody, some doubts came. Somebody after taking sannyas also may have left the process. So such an unsuccessful yogi after longer duration of practice, Krishna says they take birth in a in the family of a transcendentalist, so that they can reawaken their spiritual samskaras and continue their spiritual progress. And Krishna is managing our accounts very perfectly. Okay, he perfectly knows what are our spiritual assets from the previous lifetimes, and at the right time, those spiritual assets are rekindled so we can make progress. So, after explaining the destination of transcendentalist or a yogi, further now Krishna is emphasizing on this point: no matter whatever the situation may be, you try to become a yogi. Okay, so text 46 and 47, now Krishna is concluding on this particular chapter. The last phase of this chapter is become a yogi. And 46, Krishna says, तपस्वी अभयो अधिको योगी ज्ञानीभ्योऽपि मतो अधिकः कर्मिभ्यश्च अधिको योगी तस्मात् योगी भव अर्जुन. So Krishna is saying a yogi is greater than an ascetic, tapasvi. He is greater than an jnani, empiricist, and also greater than a fruitive worker, karmi. So don't try to become a karmi. Don't try to become a just jnani. Don't try to become an ascetic. In all situations, in all circumstances, become a yogi. Tasmat yogi bhav Arjuna. So first of all, Krishna is saying, don't simply become a karmi or a jnani or a tapasvi, but be a yogi. When we speak of yoga, when we use the word yogi, we refer to linking our consciousness with the Supreme. Okay, that is the meaning of yoga. It comes from the root word yuj. Yuj means to connect. So linking our consciousness with the Supreme, that is yoga. And such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of particular method. So it could be karma yoga, linking with the Supreme through our karma. It could be jnana yoga, linking with the Supreme based on spiritual knowledge. It could be dhyana yoga, linking with the Supreme through the process of dhyana, meditation. It could be bhakti yoga, linking with the Supreme through the process of developing devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, serving the Supreme Lord in the mood of devotion. So there could be various methods. So what Krishna is saying, don't simply become a karmi, rather become a yogi, karma yogi. Don't simply become a materialistic jnani. Somebody may be very knowledgeable, right? From material perspective also, somebody may be a jnani. Somebody has double master's degree, PhD degree, very philosopher, very philosophical nature. So that person is also jnani. But that jnana is nothing in relation with the Supreme Lord. There are so many scientists who gave big, big theories, but that is simply material education, material knowledge. So don't simply become a materialistic jnani, but be in jnana yoga. Link yourself with the Supreme. Don't simply become a tapasvi, ascetic. There are many people who do a lot of austerities. For their material prosperity also, people do a lot of austerities. People get up early, 5 o'clock in the morning. By 6 o'clock, they want to go to office, work hard in the office. That is also austerity. So Krishna is saying, don't simply become a ascetic, tapasvi, but be a yogi. Okay? Connect your consciousness with the Supreme. So, text 47, now that is the ultimate verse. Now, Krishna is telling out of all the different yoga process, what is the best one? So, first of all, in all situations, become a yogi, no doubt. But among all the different yoga processes, also, what is the best process? So, text 47, Krishna says, Yogi namapi sarvesham मद्गतेनन्तरात्मनः श्रद्धावान् लभते यो मां समयुक्ता तमो मतः. And of all the yogis, one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Mataha. So Krishna is saying that is my opinion. So here Krishna is saying somebody among all these yogis, be it karma yogi, jnana yogi, dhyana yogi, bhakti yogi, among all of these, who is most dear to me or who is topmost? Krishna is saying somebody who constantly thinks of me. Mad gaten antaratmana. Sarvesham, constantly, always. Shraddhavan bhajate yomam. With full faith, who renders transcendental loving service to me, who is most intimately united with me. That is the highest of all. So Krishna is reaffirming here that the perfection and the goal of all the yoga system is to help the individual become fully conscious of Krishna at all times. Now, while all the other yoga systems are certainly beneficial, be it karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, yes, they are beneficial. But the easiest and most efficient and the essential path is known as bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion. And that is what Krishna is mentioning here. Ultimately, all other yoga systems, they have to take support of bhakti yoga. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of bhakti yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. He has maybe performed all other yoga systems earlier. If somebody has now directly come to the process of bhakti yoga, means in the previous life he had gained certain level of success in the yoga process. He has performed karma yoga, dhyana yoga, jnana yoga type of processes already in the previous lives, and now he has come to this process of bhakti yoga to make the final missing touch. Okay. So therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga. Just as when we speak of Himalayas, it is referred as world's highest mountain, and of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. So when we speak about the Himalayas or the Mount Everest, the Himalayas are already included in that. So same way when we speak of bhakti yoga, all other yoga processes are already included in that. So it is a great fortune that one comes to this process of bhakti yoga, one comes to this process of Krishna consciousness and can make his life successful or complete the missing part of his spiritual practice. And bhakti yoga means in this age, the primary practice of bhakti yoga is mantra meditation, chanting the name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So in Bhakti Yoga, the primary practice is mantra meditation, focusing on the sound vibration. And through this process, any person from any background, they can attain spiritual perfection and they can experience all the benefits described in this chapter, where Krishna is talking about the overall process of Ashtanga Yoga, Atam Sanyam Yoga, to control the mind. So if somebody engage in this process of mantra meditation in itself helps to control the mind also. Manah trayate iti mantra, right? So that is one of the practice to control the mind. Of course, there are other things also to be done, like sharpening our intelligence with spiritual knowledge, practicing some detachment, always being in a remembrance that I am not the body, I am the spirit soul, and detaching based on that principle that I am not of this world, I belong to Krishna. So, of course, other things are there, but mantra meditation in itself is a process to tame this mind, to control this mind. So, bhakti yoga is the highest yoga system which Krishna has introduced here in the last verse. Now, chapter 7 onwards, in the next 6 chapters, Krishna is going to describe in detail about the bhakti yoga process. Okay, so up to this point, Krishna has covered karma yoga, jnana yoga, and ashtanga yoga process. Now, primarily, Krishna is going to speak about the bhakti yoga process from chapter 7 onwards. So, this is the linking verse 647 to the bhakti yoga process. And the bhakti yoga is described in 6 chapters, which are in the middle of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, sometimes the analogy is given when a very important person travels, VIP person travels, be it the president of a country, prime minister of the country. When they travel, their car is in the middle, and before, in front of that car, there are many other cars, and behind that car, there are many other cars. But the car of the very important person is in the middle. So same way, Bhakti Yoga, which is the most important process, is packed in the middle of Bhagavad Gita. So this is the overall chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is talking about the Ashtanga Yoga process, or primarily the control of mind. So with that, we'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Let's see if anybody has any questions, discussion points.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Ravi Shankar Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu. So, thank you so much for good lecture today, Prabhu. And during the course of the lecture, it got up to the end. It got clear. Some clarity I got on who is actually the yogi. Otherwise, it was more of a confusion in the initial stages. So, as I am understanding, the yogi here is somebody who is in bhakti yoga, who is thinking about Krishna all the time. But at the same time, the Ashtanga yoga, when there's in that eightfold yoga system, the topmost situation is the samadhi situation. So is it fair understanding that somebody, the yogi, is somebody who has attained the samadhi level of the Ashtanga yoga, and in that samadhi is meditating upon Krishna, and that is the ultimate level of a yogi who is and he is not even, there is no speck of any desires or so, and that is a level where one can say the successful yogi. Anything, anyone else who has even a tinge of the desire is an unsuccessful yogi. Is that?
Yes. So even in the Ashtanga yoga process, so let me first of all clarify yogi, right? When we hear this word yogi, generally, when people hear the word yogi, what comes in mind? Generally, when we hear the word yogi, what comes in mind is somebody with long matted hair, with little, just wearing that, what do you call, some little cloth, loin cloth, and having a begging bowl and a stick in the hand and just wandering around, right? That's considered as yogi. People have that kind of picture in the mind. Oh, that's a yogi. Yogi, in true sense, means somebody who is connecting himself with the Supreme Lord. Okay, that is yogi. Again, it could be, yes, it could be through the process of Ashtanga Yoga. Somebody is performing this process of Ashtanga Yoga, and ultimately the first stages of Ashtanga Yoga is just that Yama Niyam, Asan Dhyan, Asan Pratyahar, Pranayam, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So the three stages, the Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi, that is where he is now absorbing himself onto the Supreme. Right? The first, it starts with meditating on the super soul, then focusing completely on the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, it's remembering the Supreme Lord. And remembering the Supreme Lord means always being conscious about the Lord, glorifying the Lord, remembering his attributes, his name, form, qualities, pastimes, which ultimately connects with Bhakti Yoga. So they ultimately they have to come to this process of Bhakti Yoga. So to be successful in that process, that is what it takes, that is what it requires. Then they can be successful. But if they are simply practicing some asana, they are practicing some breathing control, but they are not going beyond that, right? They are not going beyond to meditate on the Supreme, then it's not really Ashtanga Yoga. Somebody may be performing very complicated asanas also. Oh, I can put my leg from the back and bring it above my shoulder and catch my leg like from here. Yes, those could all be gymnastic, right? That is all considered as gymnastic. There's somebody may be practicing very complicated asanas, but it is not really yoga. Yoga means when they come to the stage of always remembering the Supreme Lord.
And that is what Samadhi stage is.
That is what Samadhi stage is. When they are free from any distractions, either external distractions or internal distractions. External distraction may be because of the environment, right? Some noise or something else. Internal distraction means the hankering of the mind, right? Which comes from within. So when they're free from both these situations and they completely absorb on the Supreme Lord, that is the perfection of Ashtanga Yoga.
Yeah, and that's where is the success of the yogi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any scriptural references, Prabhu, where a successful yogi versus an unsuccessful yogi?
Successful yogi versus unsuccessful yogi, I mean, there are so many examples in the sense we can relate to in our circle also. We can consider somebody who is making very rapid progress based on what Krishna is describing here. We can understand that maybe in their previous life they made a lot of progress and left somewhere. That's how they are making such advancement now in spiritual life.
Yeah, I was mainly thinking more from the any scriptural, like, because we see even Saptarishis.
Mm-hmm.
So they are highly elevated on the top of the Satyalok there. But at the end of the Manvantar, Saptarishis also changes. So what happens to them? Are they successful yogis who go back to Godhead? Uh, that's
Yes.
that's what I was thinking.
They go back to Godhead also. Now you should consider those as positions also, right? Because in the material government also, they are appointed to take up that role. So even Brahmaji, let's say Brahmaji is appointed for that position. Ultimately, it's not that Brahma always has to stay there. Brahma can also go back to Godhead and somebody else may take up that position. But for maintaining the government, this universal government, they are appointed representatives. So even though Saptarishis and so many other great sages are there, yes, they are the yogis who in some situation may be considered as they're continuing with their journey. That's another example is Shukdev Goswami. Okay. So Shukdev Goswami is also in one sense as a continuing on his journey, on his path as an unsuccessful yogi who appeared as Shukdev Goswami to finish off his journey.
Yeah.
right? So from very birth, he was detached and he just ran away from the house. So that is kind of as an example of unsuccessful yogi who took birth in a family of a transcendentalist and took to this process from the very beginning.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhu. Yeah. So the current Saptarishis was like the current Saptarishis, the string Rishi, Vashishthamuni, or Bharadwaj. So after the height of the Manvantara, do they go back to Godhead, or do they come back, or we don't know?
So they can definitely go back, and Krishna can send them back for his purpose. Let's say many of Krishna's associates, they come in this world when Lord appears, right, to participate in Lord's Leela. So Krishna can send somebody back also. Let's say the gurus. The guru is representative of Krishna. It's not that they are also continuing their journey from the previous lives. Sometimes they are just descending from the spiritual world to fulfill the task of Krishna. So
Okay.
not that Krishna. So Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. So whenever there is decline in religious principles, whenever there is increase in irreligiosity, the asuras increase. So I descend. Okay. So it's not necessarily that Krishna himself has to descend. Krishna can send his representative also to establish the principles of religion. So for that purpose, Krishna does not have to come himself. Krishna can send his bona fide representative also, like
Yeah.
Ramanujacharya, right?
Yeah.
So he is a representative of the Lord who came from the spiritual world to establish the principle of religion. So Krishna, somebody who is in the spiritual world, can also come in this material world for certain task, for certain purpose.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Little confusion on exhausting the desires. Normally, it is my understanding was that it is very hard to exhaust the desire. When if you try to accomplish something, your desire keeps increasing. Now I understand your first comment on unsuccessful yogi, that Krishna sends them to higher lokas to exhaust their desires. How is that contradictory?
Not to exhaust their desires, Krishna sends them to higher planets for them to try out, to enjoy, okay, based on their desire. It's not that they will exhaust their desires, because desires are never exhausted as long as we try to satisfy those desires. It's like pouring the ghee in the fire. So going to the higher planets is Krishna is giving them the opportunity. Okay, you had this desire, you wanted to enjoy in this way, so you can enjoy, try to enjoy there. So ultimately, once somebody is frustrated with trying to enjoy their desires or their anchorings are frustrated, then they develop that detachment. So desires can never be satisfied. Ultimately, one develops that renunciation, develops the detachment from that same object. That okay, I have tried enough to satisfy in this way. There is no happiness, there is no satisfaction, and then they develop detachment from that same object.
So it is not to exhaust the desires, but to develop the detachment
Yes.
by doing it.
Yes. So ultimately, one has to develop that sense of detachment. So not exhausting the desires, but try to enjoy the desires. Krishna says, you wanted to eat rasgulla. In Swarga, there is a better rasgulla. Okay. So there is better rasgulla, there is unlimited rasgulla. You can enjoy for longer time. Ultimately, after trying for longer time, better rasgulla, still you will not be satisfied. You will ultimately you have to give up that desire. You have to develop detachment from that object. Okay. So when we say exhausting the desires means giving up material desires, developing detachment for that. But yes, spiritual desires will be there. We need to transform our material desires into spiritual desires. Earlier, somebody has a desire to listen to rock music, right? Some materialistic music, but then transform into listening to spiritual music, like spiritual song, right? Just listening to kirtan, listening to some bhajan. Earlier, somebody has desire to enjoy a particular variety of food, but now offer everything to Krishna and then take that food. So in that way, transforming or kind of transitioning from material desire to spiritual desires. Okay, anything else? Yes,
So
Vijay
Prabhu,
Prabhu.
sorry, let Vijay Prabhu ask you.
I think Vijay Prabhu is trying to ask something.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Vijay Prabhu.
see, some of the acharyas have said that the material world is so vast that you know in one or the other universe, the lila is continuously happening.
Yes.
So if the material world, universe is such large, and Krishna says it is just, I mean, one fourth of it, and three-fourth is spiritual universe. So huge. This one, see, actually, what we know is not even a minuscule thing. So is it that once we totally connect to Krishna, all these things will be revealed to us as a perfect knowledge, or is it that
Yes.
this element will keep on remaining until
No, so as we connect ourselves more and more with Krishna, so Krishna reveals within our heart. So in chapter 10, those verses will also come, as I said, in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna is now going to speak much more detail in the process of Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna says, with the sword of knowledge, I cut down their ignorance. Okay, so I remove their ignorance, the darkness, and Krishna further and further enlightens us from within the heart. And as we continue to progress towards Krishna, that further realizations are there, further revelation is there. And in that way, when we connect with Krishna, then we can ultimately go back to Krishna. One does not have to continue within this material world. Yes, Krishna comes within this material world also. What is the purpose of Krishna's coming to this material world? To reclaim these lost souls. Okay, that is the purpose of Krishna's coming here. So that Krishna performs the Leela, we can be attracted to Krishna's Leela, so we can remember Krishna, we can remember his Naam, Roop, Guna, Leela, Ityadi, and develop our attachment to Krishna. So material world, even though it's so vast, as you said, material world is only 1/4. 3/4 is the spiritual world. So how vast the spiritual world will be? So people in the spiritual world are more numbers than people in spiritual worlds. Or to say, the living entities, the souls in spiritual worlds are much more than what we have in material world.
So it means to say that I mean, it's not so difficult to go to spiritual world. Like a lot of for the ages, since a lot of ages, a lot of people have taken birth in this sort of universe and gone there. So and there also have some sort of a different sort of desires. Otherwise, there it cannot be just monotonous. That will be a vivid.
Right. So their desire in spiritual world is only to serve Krishna. Unless one comes to that level of desire, that my desire is to only serve Krishna, first of all, one is not eligible to go to spiritual world. So there is no other desire in spiritual world. Nobody is desiring, I want to enjoy food for myself. I want to have association of beautiful women or things like that. So there is no separate desire from Krishna. So until one comes to that stage, to have all their desires inclined towards Krishna, one is not first of all eligible to go to spiritual world.
Activities in spiritual lives are different. It's not of a mundane character.
Right. So activities in spiritual world. What are the activities in spiritual world? All for the pleasure of Krishna. Singing the glories of Krishna, dancing for the pleasure of Krishna. So all the activities are just for Krishna. Right now we may be doing those activities for some part of the day, or for once in a while, once in a week kind of thing. But there, the all the time the activities are only in service of Krishna.
So
And
this
if
the concept of kalpa and all is not applicable to this.
no,
And all
see,
is not at all.
no, time is absent in spiritual world in one sense, because it's always in a still mode one sense, because there is no old age. Everybody is youthful. Okay? There Krishna is like a 16-year-old boy, Kishore Avastha. And all people, all the living entities are also in the same stage. Everybody is youthful there. So in the pastime of Chatush Kumaras, when the Chatush Kumaras go there in the spiritual world, they cross the 6 gates, come to the 7th gate, and they see this Jai Vijay. Now this Jai Vijay also appears like Lord Vishnu only. Right? They are also very youthful. So the whole description of Jai Vijay is also described. They are very youthful and wearing nice garlands and all that. Their form is like the form of Vishnu. So everybody is youthful there in spiritual world, and time is in one sense still. Okay. So our endeavor should be how I can continue my progress in spiritual life for that perfection, to gain that ultimate goal. Okay, anything else? Or we will end it here.
Prabhu just was thinking on the same thing. So the principles of Ashtanga Yoga was established mainly for the tapasvis, so that stringent criteria of a qualified yogi in a satyug is something which is more on the path of tapasvi, who is attained and is able to sustain that samadhi situation with the focusing on Krishna. But as it progresses with the different yugas, now the definition of a successful yogi is more like somebody who is able to perform and the day-to-day activities also, but at the same time stay in the bhakti
Yes.
process.
For every yuga, there is a different process of self-realization. In Satya Yuga, the duration of life is huge, right? 100,000 years. In Treta Yuga, 10,000 years. In Dwapar Yuga, 1,000 years. And then in Kali Yuga, 100 years, which is declining as the Kali Yuga progresses. So earlier, because the duration of life is so vast, and the process of self-realization is mentioned as the dhyana, to be able to perform dhyana, that's why, because they have to absorb in dhyana for longer duration of time. For that purpose, this Ashtanga Yoga process is described, that earlier they need to practice asanas to be able to sit for longer time. Right now, we cannot sit for half an hour, right? Right, in the lotus pose, can you sit for half an hour also for chanting? That is also difficult. And there they will be sitting for thousands of years in the lotus posture, in the process, in the samadhi. So to accomplish that, that's why the process of this asana is there, to gain that physical ability to sit in a longer duration in that posture. And then pranayam, right, to control the breathing, to be able to again sit in a very erect position. That's why this Ashtanga Yoga process is there recommended for that particular age. And we can utilize some principles of this Ashtanga Yoga. Yes, we have to control our mind when we perform our mantra meditation, right? That is important. So similar principle can be utilized, but tailored to our current practice.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. So,
Okay, thank you everyone.
some leverage and exceptions. Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna.